think everybody should lead in a way that adapts to your audience. If things go wrong, throw me at it and I'll fix it and then make it better. We can only innovate the easier we make people's lives. And you've got to be careful because you don't want to be called a bitch.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. iGaming History. I'm joined today by Megan Easey, CEO of XACE. Megan, absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
So good to join you, Narcissus. Really and truly, I'm so excited for you about these new podcasts and the direction that you're taking. This is just what the industry needs.
I couldn't do it without the goodwill of some very, very nice people. And I'm very grateful that you are here with me today.
Thank you for the invitation.
My absolute pleasure. Do you remember how we met?
I do remember how we met. We met at Crypto Hub Malta, where we were both completely in the thick of COVID-19, but able to gather and collect and share brilliant ideas. So that was a really, really good thing that we met because, we've been close ever since.
Correct. And I was ordering a drink and I was on good terms with the bar guy, and I told him, you know what I want. And you looked at me and you're that type of guy. And then you shook my hand, strong shake, and the rest is history, as they say. If we met in 2000 and I told you where iGaming would be, would you have ever believed me?
I wouldn't, but I say that from a positive point of view, because when I first touched iGaming, was 2004. So there was a legacy of 4 years already. And in 2004, it was kind of like a free-for-all. And at the time, I was working for a global outsourcing business, kind of pretty old-fashioned. It was email and phone calls. And we got approached by pokerroom.com, which at the time was called OnGame. And we were setting up all their customer support in South Africa for, UK, Canada, and the US. And when I touched online gaming, I was like, wow, people play poker online. I'd never walked into a casino as an individual and didn't really know much about gambling because I'd never participated in any. But from the moment that I heard about it, I was completely obsessed with what is the customer experience. And what made me shy away initially was that there were no controls in place. So there was no responsible gambling. There were no limits on deposits and withdrawals. People stayed loyal based on the bonuses that they got. And it was literally like the Wild West. And I know for sure it was the Wild West in 2000. So if you'd said to me, this is where we are today, I would be clapping. Because at this stage, we're actually putting player protection first, above profit. And that's not just from a regulatory point of view, that's actually from an ethical point of view. So my applause as to where we've got. But I would never have believed so much automation was possible. I would never have believed that the industry was so full of unbelievable talent. And so I think this is an industry that's grown faster than I can imagine anything else, apart now from AI, which is the monster of any industry.
Who was Megan Easey before she was a very recognized figure in iGaming?
Well, I started my career in a contact center in the old days when it was just telephone calls. So this is in the 90s, of course. And what we did was retail banking. So you could go to the till and make deposits and withdraw, which was like, wow, at the time. And in the South African market, that was particularly powerful because everybody goes into a supermarket, right? And then we launched what we called a money market fund, where people had a minimum balance of quite a large amount. And we decided we would build a product based on asset swaps. So we worked with a local insurance company who were doing brokerage, and we literally sold this product, which had a large minimum investment, doing outbound calls. So we called all the customers who had big money on our accounts, told them about this offshore investment that was for 5 years. And they said to us, it'll be great if you make $1 million. And we made 6 million literally in 6 weeks. So I was on fire from a commercial point of view, like, hitting targets. But at the core of how I've worked has always been customer first, but it's also team first. So for me, it's a natural thing. As happy as your people are, is as happy as your customers are going to be. And that stuck with me throughout my career. So yeah, just imagine me with a headset in a call center doing QA and motivating teams and doing training.
When you joined iGaming, what was the world like? What did operations mean back then?
Oh my goodness, operations meant customer service. There was very little payments and fraud, and from an RG point of view, was non-existent. So we were at the raw stage, and if somebody we couldn't even see what they'd deposited or what their transactions were. We were pure customer service. So that escalated quickly when the 2006 UIGA law came into place and gaming was banned in America. So there was a swoop after that. B1 bought On Game. They pushed their European strategy, pushed into Canada and the UK, and took it from there. So yeah, customer service was the entirety of operations around 2004 to 2006, 7. Things started to change. So of course, KYC became a hot topic, and KYC became stronger when you had to do Face ID. And, nobody's passport picture is attractive. And if it is, then hallelujah for you. But when I started overseeing things in payments and risk, and people were sending in Face ID before it actually filtered whether it was a face or not, I cannot express to you how many dick pics came through to payments to verify that somebody was holding that account. There are so many funny stories. Just from a personal point of view, I can remember once I was working at one of the biggest companies in Malta at the time. And at that point, I was listening to music while I was doing some work. And I didn't look up at any point because I didn't hear the alarm going off. It was one of those practice evacuations, and the alarm went off and everybody raced to get their handbags and raced outside. And I was sat there completely alone at my seat, looking around going, oh, where's everyone? And as it turned out, it was a real thing because, in fact, part of the building caught fire. And so I was sitting in the building, thinking I'm such a tough person. Meantime, I should have been out on the street with everybody else.
Was there a moment when you thought, okay, this industry, this is the place for me?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. It's because I don't think there's another industry that gives people as many opportunities for growth. If somebody is exceptional in customer service, they will go through the ranks, especially because then they keep the customer in mind. And I use that word a lot for the simple fact that we are not here if we don't have customers, none of us, no matter what seniority we have. So for me, it's a very flat organogram. Everybody's contributing to one thing. So that would be my summary.
You've watched the industry grow from gray markets to venture-backed giants. What are the lessons that were learned?
Well, I joined Betson in 2008 and we were 80 people. So I took care of customer support and we were the biggest team at the time. And when I left in 2010, simply because of relocating out of Malta, we would then right up to around 140 and customer support was 60 people in 11 languages. So learning from Betson, who literally became one of the giants in gaming, is that this progressive growth is very much around the customer experience. And I think one of the big differences between the giants like Bet365, for example, it is phenomenal what they've done. is that they stay true to their brand, to their initial brand, and that anything that falls under the umbrella going forward is all about making sure that the right automations, processes, payments, platforms, all of that stuff's in place to support that brand growth. It's not a spray and pray, as they call it. It's a know and grow. So they researched where they were going. They understood the impact. They took chances. And I think that's across the board when it comes to the growth of the giants.
If you had to pinpoint an event, and I mean in all of your years in the industry, an event that changed the trajectory of the industry forever, which one would it be?
Well, I think that UIGEA in 2006 changed trajectory. And then following on from that, I think around 2017, they started putting proper automated controls in place for responsible gambling and for payment services. So those two junctures, I think really and truly changed gaming, because then there was the introduction of MLROs, and there was fines, and you had to have anti-money laundering policies, GDPR. It all started to get tight. So acquiring a customer was the same in terms of their various channels, but those channels were regulated. You take the UK, for example, you couldn't put an advert onto the TV that had even an impression that that person might be under 25 years old. Whereas in Sweden, for example, when I was working, I'd travel there for a few weeks at a time, and I'd watch Swedish television, and they would have repeat videos of bonuses. So that tightening of the belt, I think, made a very big difference. But you also see all those people who were in customer support right at the beginning are now taking on C-level roles. They have they have an approach that's customer centric, but they also are, being given shares from the beginning of these small companies. So, it's a paradise for people to grow, but most definitely the tightening of the belt made profit more difficult.
There's a lot of conversation that the regulation stopped or hindered innovation. Some argue that there's no innovation at all. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Is that the case, or we're just scratching the surface?
I don't know how much we're scratching the surface, in the sense that we've done so much in this industry up until where we are now in 2025. Again, I hammer on about the customer experience. You still need the human touch. You still need somebody to manage and interact with a customer. Now, you look at the profiles of different products, for example, they would say poker people are much more social and they like to show their muscle and be on tables as whales. You talk about the fish and the whales when it comes to poker. So very good players would dominate online environments with playing good hands, and then they'd be celebrated in the World Poker Series, for example. Whereas casino was different. Casino people typically are quieter, they're more on the side. And I didn't work for Bets On once, I worked for them twice when I returned to Malta in 2015. And at that point, we were, for example, we had our VIPs, we actively managed our VIPs within regulations, but the treats would include things like trips to watch the ATP tennis finals, or go to Barcelona to watch this amazing air show. So engaging with poker players versus casino players is slightly different. I remember at 888 around 2010, they did something very interesting with bingo. Was they first did bingo, typically more female, older women. They did an experiment where they asked people to upload pictures of themselves to grow a community, and nobody was willing to do it. Instead, they changed it and they said, upload a picture of your pet. And suddenly they created this incredible environment where people were interacting, they were in chat forums, they were bragging about their animals. And, that's just super clever. That's working with what you've got. That's innovation from a customer point of view. But if I look at For example, payment solutions where you can go onto an affiliate site, click, and it'll connect to your bank and automatically KYC you. That's phenomenal. You're taking so much pain out of the process of getting the customer from the affiliate site into the game itself. What could happen from here? People want convenience. They want to be doing a couple of clicks and they're in. But I've always said this, and sadly, not a single operator has ever taken it on board, is that we need to inform people up front. We protect you and we protect your money. So setting your limits just makes the process smoother. Updating your KYC makes sure that you can get your withdrawal out the fastest. But instead, we just get the customer to deposit, and once they hit the 2,000 mark, then we start putting all these controls in place. So I think there's a totally different approach that can be used, although it's frequently referred to as soft, and that you won't convert at acquisition if you make it difficult for them up front. So I think casino players are picky about where they play. It's about, if I play on BetZone or I play on Bet365, where do I get a bigger payout? So, there's a lot of mythology around the brands they choose. And reinforcement of those brands, or certainly reinforcement of what their experience is with a brand or a product, whether it be poker, casino, bingo, scratch cards, whatever the case. So to answer your question, I think that we continue innovating, the easier we make people's lives in making the first bet and coming back. One of the big entries into gaming has obviously been crypto. That as a sidestep from, regular onboarding and all the controls. Mm-hmm. And you look at something like crypto.com as a casino, and this has turned everything upside down. So you've got a lot of intermediaries, you've got people coming in where you don't know where their crypto came from. And given the direction the world is taking around trying to get money into a decentralized space, we have to start asking questions about how can we still protect the customer at the end of the day. It's the same as play to earn, for example. People talk about launching a site where the more someone plays, the better position they have. And that, for me, is absolutely a responsible gambling issue, because responsible gambling is down to two things. Have you got enough time, and do you have enough money to be doing what you're doing? And money we can set limits on based on what people earn, but you cannot know how much time somebody has. So in a play to earn scenario, you've got somebody who can literally spend 12 hours a day online playing to earn. And at the same time, you also get people who can buy certain that replaces play to earn. So if you've got a guy who's online 12 hours, meantime, he's not spending time with his kids, he's not spending time with his family, you have no metrics on it. And too much time engaging can often be more impactful than somebody who's spending too much money. So I think the play to earn factor on many of the things that for example, whether it's a poker, casino, or whichever product, we've got to be super cautious, because this is not just about money. It really isn't.
But if somebody's willing to invest all that time,
how do you keep a control of it? How do you know that they have that amount of time? Because you look at AI, for example, you could have an AI bot who's online for you, and there's no limit to the amount of time that bot has. But human beings, and let's call it facial recognition as one of the tools to make sure that it's a human being who's pressing the button and spinning the wheel, we can't know for sure what that time should be used for something else. So I think the controls around that, you've got to be so careful. I think play to earn as a model needs its own regulation, and I've been saying that for a long time.
Now, how, in your opinion, how would that look like?
What it might look like is the limits are limited to 4 hours, for example, or 6 hours, and that needs to be set by the customer. But once that limit is reached, they can't continue. So they can make the choice about how much time they think they have. But if you have across the board 8 hours, for example, there is a point in time where you have to stop. You can't continue and do 18 hours. There's got to be a point that you have to stop. So collectively, daily, weekly, monthly. I think that's the only way to do it. You can have it at the maximum if you want. You don't have to fulfill the maximum, but there has to be a method to stop.
Is there willingness from new founders in the industry to pursue innovation, or has it become more of a, let me start a company, see how much it grows, and then I try to sell it?
I think it very much depends on market penetration. So if you have a brand that picks up quickly in a particular market because it is tailored and personalized, you have an edge as a startup to be absorbed by something bigger who wants to get into that market, for example, or have a niche. A lot of solutions nowadays are replicated. So you can come up with a great idea, but then somebody else will come along and duplicate it. So it's also about, trademarks, for example. If I can trademark this idea, or I can make it niche in my offering as a giant, then yes, I'll buy it and I'll nurture it. But yeah, it's a saturated marketplace. I think it's hard to necessarily innovate. I think many of the gaming companies who've grown have their own platforms. Betson has Texon, their entire own platform. In the old days, it was all microgaming. And I remember when they said that the owners of microgaming would probably make $1 million in the 1 minute it takes to brush one of the owner's teeth. So, the money is different now. The ownership is different now. So you've got to be really unique to say that you can innovate.
You've held some high-level positions, and you have performed exceptionally well in the industry which is not exactly known for gender equality. How did you manage to do this?
I was very lucky because my very first experience in a senior role was that I was commuting from Cape Town to Stockholm. And the culture in 2004-05 within the Swedish context was very friendly, in the sense that it didn't matter whether I was a woman or not. We were all sitting around the table contributing. I think it's got more difficult as time has gone on, purely because there's almost a constant fight for women to be represented. But I personally haven't experienced that because I've never looked at myself in terms of my gender. I look at myself in terms of my contribution. Do I get affected every now and then? I don't let it affect me. I'm just doing my thing on my path. And if I can coach and nurture women in gaming to be successful, part of that is about having a thick skin. Just go for it. Don't count yourself as how you classify yourself gender-wise. Just go for it. The results speak for themselves.
Did you ever feel that you had to lead differently?
I think everybody should lead in a way that adapts to your audience. For some people, you have to take a harder approach. For other people, you take a gentle approach. It's leadership to me is adaptation. It's not survival of the fittest. It's the survival of those who most easily adapt. Have I had situations where people have maybe felt they would think that if a man had told them, they would listen to it better? Yeah, I've been in those situations. But again, I'm thick-skinned. I just kind of water off a duck's back. If you don't want to hear it from me, I'm not going to go and speak to daddy to get daddy to tell you. I'm letting you know, and in whatever way we have to do it, you're still going to get the message. And you've got to be careful because you don't want to be called a bitch. And that's a very common thing, is that if a woman's strong and powerful, she's a bitch. And that's, again, it's down to whether you let that affect you or not. If you're doing things the right way with the right intentions, you put people first, customer first, you'll generally get a good outcome.
What does it take to build something great in an industry that is moving so fast?
I think you've got to have a solid foundation and you've got to have a solid view of what you're trying to achieve. So if you go and duplicate something that someone's already doing and you position it differently, what is your core desire? Are you trying to get into a particular marketplace? It's not just about revenue goals, it's about the retention goals. So is there longevity to what you're doing?
Do you have a day in your career that you considered was like the worst day or very difficult, very, very difficult day, and that you learned something from?
Yes, I do indeed. So I was working at an operator and we'd built a system that did automatic controls and flags on responsible gambling. And only after the fact, in other words, somebody had managed to deposit and lose everything and we didn't pick it up in the system. We suddenly realized the system isn't working. So every single one of us, there was supposed to be a party that was sponsored by one of our providers at our building. And literally, there was none of us who were at the party. We were all going into manual checks on any new signups, on any new activity. That was literally probably one of the most intense days I've ever experienced. So that was a big learning. You can't always rely on automation. You've also got to keep testing all the time. Four eyes, four eyes.
After having spent so much time in an industry that both moves quickly and can also be controversial in some ways, how do you feel that changed you as a person?
Gaming changed me because it gave so much opportunity. And that's across the board for everyone, I'm sure. But it changed me because we tend to stagnate as humans. You know, if you get comfortable, you'll stay where you are. And I liked and still like the discomfort that comes with gaming because anything can happen at any point in time. So it made me, and I joke because I say that operations is slightly masochistic because you never finish what you're doing. It's continuous improvement. And if anything goes wrong, the first person who's going to know about it is in operations. So you've got to, pull it together. You're a punching bag. And so I think that I've grown into a mature punching bag, but I don't take it as a punch. I'm like, okay, how can we fix this? How are we going to move forward to prevent it happening again? How do we plan so that we're aware of what the risks are with every action we take going forward?
When you make decisions, are they mostly data? Is it instinct? A mix of both?
A mix for the fact that you need data to validate your instinct. However, sometimes data is not available or you're willing to take a big risk. And the thing is, we have in this industry so many entrepreneurs, and they're not entrepreneurs by accident. They've taken chances where potentially they shouldn't. Some have failed, of course, but some have succeeded beyond their wildest imagination. So I would say majority would be data-based, but when you get a feeling for something, you just go.
Some people say that some leaders are visionary leaders and some are operational leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you sit on this spectrum, and if you can tell us why.
My heart is operations because it's people. That said, even though I'm passionate about people backed by workflows, processes, documentation, continuous improvement, I think you've got to be a visionary. You've got to be a visionary with individuals to show them what they can achieve. You've got to be a visionary with a product to see where you are in the marketplace and how you can differentiate yourself. And I think you've also got to be someone who collaborates with loads of people in the business. So some of the best ideas I've ever heard have come out of customer service. Some of the best ideas I've ever heard have come from the customer themselves. So I think that the vision is paved not just by a leader, for example. The vision is paved by collaboration and talking and throwing things around and actually fostering a healthy environment for the vision of how we want to go forward.
And speaking of vision, can you share a bit what of the vision is for XACE and what you're trying to accomplish there?
I always think the pronunciation one off is it's XACE, but that's an X, so people easily say it differently. But XACE, we've been functioning as XACE UK for nearly 5 years. The next part is about launching because we have our EU license. So we're going to relaunch XACE EU. We're going to have many, many more payment rails. But we've also been through a lot of change in the business in terms of structure and people and roles and deliverables. And I didn't think working in the payments fintech world would be as hectic as working in operations in gaming. But potentially it's even more because you're dealing with people's money, whether it's a company's money or an individual's money who's part of a company. You can't get away. It is regulated, it is highly monitored, and you've got to have very specific skills in place to run it effectively. And I think we've done that. I really think we've managed to do that, is get the right people in place.
Is this the company's secret sauce, or are there other like USPs?
I think our secret sauce is that we're also part of a conglomerate because XACE is one of Lunicorn Ventures investments. So at the top of XACE, there's a venture capitalist company. So we've got a VC called Lunicorn Ventures, and our VC literally lends strategy and operations to the XACE brand. So whilst I sit on the board of Lunicorn as the VC, I take a very active role in the CEO position in XACE because we want to continue to invest and grow this brand. We also have other investments. So for XACE being part of a conglomerate and also being supported by Lunicorn, there's really no limit to how successful we can be. We position ourselves as more private with larger amounts. We're not a small time payments organization. It's big payments, strong customers, and the strategy and vision is that we just continue an up trajectory, of course.
I assume you also see a lot of what's going on the market. People come to you. They obviously they want investments so that they can push their baby out there. What are you seeing, or what is even interesting to look at out there for you?
Well, something I've seen quite a lot of is people trying to tie the online experience to an in-person experience. So a couple of people have put forward apps, for example, where you're online and you can somehow, not virtual, because virtual still hasn't taken off necessarily, but clubs belonging to a land-based casino. From the land-based casino, you can put it into an app-based experience, with the people that you meet there. And then you get something out of left field, which could be, for example, an app that aggregates all of the movies that are with the main providers, Netflix, Amazon, HBO, whatever, and presents it forward as a tool to, based on your preferences, recommend a movie. So the main difference is, like I was saying, it's got to have longevity, number one. It can't easily be replicated, and that it actually adds value to not only profit-wise, but also to whoever the end customer is. So the trends are, I would say, you've got to have a robust model. You've got to begin with the end in mind. And unless you can prove that, you're not going to get to the table.
For entrepreneurs who are entering the space and who want to make their mark out there, Do you have any advice?
I think entrepreneurs coming into gaming or fintech, my advice would be that you need to be clear on your idea, because too many people have quick ideas, and then when it comes to implementation, they have no idea. That's what's special about Lunicorn, is that we lend all our experience to anything that we invest in. So we've got strategy, we've got, tools, we've got your software as a service, we've got the operational side, we've got, big players like, a Mark Taffler, for example, who works on the commercial side, who would lend his knowledge, experience, and network with anyone we invest in. And I think Lunicorn makes sense when you want not somebody who's going to come in and take over. You want somebody who's going to be your partner to help you grow what you're building.
Megan, I know that you are short for time, but I don't want to let you go without the magic question.
Mm-hmm.
How would you like to be remembered in iGaming history?
I think the legacy I'd like to leave in the gaming industry is, without mistake, all about people. So in every organization I've ever worked in every organization that I've supported, there's two parts, is that each person I worked with grew, became wiser, stronger, and better because of their own strengths, and me motivating and guiding for those people to reach their maximum potential. And then the next part is, I want to be known as someone where if things go wrong, throw me at it and I'll fix it and then make it better. So those are the two things I'd leave behind: a legacy of people and the magic they can produce, and then getting thrown at the shit and fixing it and making it better.
Knowing you, I know that this is going to be the case.
That's a great reassurance. Thank you.
With pleasure. Megan, an absolute pleasure and honor to have you with us. Thank you to everybody who watched us tonight. You can expect more from iGaming history in the future. Thank you.